Good day, my name is Alistair Potts. I'm a botanist. I study plants and the distribution of plants in plant communities. So my talk today is about the early Cape landscapes and how these ancient landscapes might have looked. And specifically, there is a component of humans in my talk, early humans, and trying to understand how, trying to understand how an event, a cognitive revolution that took place in early humans might have happened in these landscapes. So my research focus was on Cape coastal landscapes, and there's an important component to this is understanding this cognitive revolution. This is a painting that's been put together by Maggie Newman with a number of scientists advising her and giving pieces of the puzzle for her to paint and how we think those things fit together. And I'd like to there's a lot of information in this painting, so I'd like to just strip it down so that we can focus on specific elements. And let's start off with, I've said that these landscapes are important because of the cognitive evolution, or cognitive revolution in humans. So what potentially could this evidence be? Well, firstly, we'd agree that we'd look for art. And this is the earliest undisputed form of artwork that has ever been found at Blombos Cave, and it dates back to 65,000 years ago. You can see the parallel striations, the triangles, geometry. Whenever I see this, it kind of takes me back to my school days in geometry class. And there's a natural affinity for that. We agree that that is artwork. What else would we consider signs of behavioral modernity? Someone who's behaviorally modern. So these are tiny little shells that have had holes drilled into them. Now these would be placed onto a piece of sinew, worn as a necklace, or worn in the hair, or adorned onto clothes. So even though, so at 75,000 years ago, we know that early humans had some kind of sense of bling. They were adorning, and here's another fascinating find that dates back to 110,000 years ago, this time at Pinnacle Point. And how many of you have walked along the seashore, picking up shells and taking them home and displaying them for a bit? Now, these shells were excavated out of Pinnacle Point. Now, what's unique about these specific shells that are shown up there is that we know that these animals died and were washed up to the seashore onto the sandy shore and have got deep scratches in them. So, what this indicates to us is that 110,000 years ago, more than 3,000 generations ago, our early ancestors along this coast were walking along, doing the exact same behavior that we do by finding something pretty, picking it up, and taking it into their caves. And we also have the earliest records of hominid foraging of shellfish along the intertidal zone. And so this dates back to 165,000 years ago. And it seems more than a coincidence that when hominids start making use of the intertidal zone, which has got lots of omega-3s and 6s in the shellfish, which we know are associated with brain development, that all of these behavioral modernity, or evidence of behavioral modernity, occurs subsequently. So I've been talking about the cognitive revolution, but what I really want to talk about is the Cape coastal landscapes. This is what gets me excited. And what we see in this picture is a landscape that's completely different to one that we see today. In the background is a flat plain, very unlike the mountainous, rugged cape that we know today. So where is this flat plain? Where could it have existed? Well, for the last 2 million years, we've actually spent more time in an ice age than we have in an interglacial stage that we've had at present. So I want you to pay attention to all these red areas. That's an exposed continental shelf, this plain that was in existence for most of the last 2 million years. So the coastline of South Africa looked entirely different to what it does today. And on that coastline, as you move to the interior, we have you move into the Rocky Mountains, which are nutrient poor and can't sustain a large herbivore biomass, many animals. But when you move out onto that plain, the geology and the vegetation changes completely. Suddenly we can support large herds of animals, many that we are familiar with today: elephants, kudu, zebra. But not only that, there were a range of species that are now extinct today. We had giant zebra, giant warthog, and we had this extinct species of buffalo, the Cape Longhorn buffalo, which was an absolute monster. So along that Cape South Coast, we had herds of large animals, but there's a rich diversity of edible plants, which we think would have been good fallback foods for early humans to survive through times lean periods, but also that there are a few species that we think might have been a staple day-to-day food substance. So we also have this highly productive coastline, which is rich in shellfish, which would have also sustained humans. It's a pantry, a highly productive pantry that is very predictable in resources. But most of this system is now extinct. It's underwater. And so how do we reconstruct the system? And this is where it's really exciting to try and attempt to reconstruct the system, because there's no single discipline that can provide these answers. We have to work in an interdisciplinary research framework. So on a month-to-month basis, I'm interacting with a whole range of different people from different disciplines to try and crack what this extinct paleo landscape would have looked like. And what we're trying to do is to bring in all our pieces to this puzzle to figure out this Paleo-Gallus plain. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope the next time that you are looking at our Cape coastal landscapes and seascapes, that you remember the tie that holds all of humanity together. Likely arose along our shores, the ability to think and to cooperate. And it was those abilities that allowed humans to expand out of Africa and to colonize the world. Thank you very much.